Hi, Erin. How are you today?
Very good. How are you, Tammy?
I am good, thanks. So, hey, I want to talk to you about freight today. It is a subject that has been on a lot of topics of conversation between us, GPI, and our customers. I've been reading a lot about it in LinkedIn posts. I've been hearing even retail owners talk about it. And now I'm noticing a lot of conversation just in the general media to consumers about all the craziness that is going on in the distribution channels. Now, we are in peak season for manufacturing, right? Everyone is trying
hmm
to get the most manufactured and out the door of the factory and shipped from China to here because Q4 holiday season is approaching. But it seems this year we are manufacturing even more. The factories are busier than ever. And when this is happening, we have this freight situation going on. So, what I want to do is talk about what happens from a game. It's finished production. So, production, it's just coming off the production line. All the games are now packed in case packs and it needs to be shipped. So I want you to take us through step by step of what happens from the factory to the warehouse here. And let's say the warehouse is in the US, it could be anywhere globally, but let's
Sure.
talk about the US. All right, so the first question, starting at the very beginning. I'm a manufacturer or a game publisher, and my game just finished. It's all in the case packs. It's ready to go and ship to the US. What happens now?
Um, well, first of all, if you're just starting to think of freight, once your product is all complete, you're you're too late to the ball
Oh,
game. You actually need to start thinking about freight and your shipping plan as soon as you have a complete date.
okay.
Once you have a complete date for your games from your factory, you need to start thinking about where this is going. How big is it going to be? How much is this going to cost me? Where am I shipping it to? All of these are really, really important questions because once your game is done in the factory, it should already have that plan in place and you should
Okay.
already have booked that. So,
Okay.
what you want to start with is exactly that. Find out where you want your games to go or your products to go after it's all complete. You might want to ship it to two different destinations. Maybe you have some foreign distributors that you also want to send it to. And how many of these products do you want to send to each individual destination? These
Okay.
are the things you want to think about. Once you have that plan laid out, you want to get a freight estimate. Shipping right now is very, very, very expensive. So you
Yes.
definitely want to be prepared to
Okay.
know what you're going to be spending in the future. Knowing and understanding that it will just be an estimate at this point because your your product may not be shipping for another month, but you want to have a plan as to who is going to ship this and how you're going to work that out with them.
Okay. And is it true? And I'm going to put you on the spot here. I apologize. Is it true that right now those freight estimates are coming in at um, three, four, five times higher than we've seen any other time of the year or any other
Absolutely.
year?
Absolutely. 2 years ago, you could ship a 40-foot container for between $6,000 and $8,000, and right now, we're seeing $16,000 to $23,000 per
Okay.
container. So
Okay.
it is incredibly expensive.
Okay. All right. Um, so let me ask you this. So the productions are, this is what we talked about. So we've done all the pre-planning, right?
hmm
We were in manufacturing and we talked to, say, someone like yourself who is a logistics coordinator, and you get our freight quote, you know where everything is shipping, and now we're ready to ship. The cartons are at the factory, they're done and ready to go. What happens to them now?
So once you've made your freight plan, early on, you wanted to check in with your factory about 2 weeks before everything completes fully and is ready to ship. At that point, you want to tell your factory or your manufacturer where it's shipping, who is going to be shipping it, being the forwarder that you chose, either through
Okay.
your manufacturer like GPI, or you can hire forwarders yourself and work directly with them. But you need to voice that to your factory so they can reach out to your freight forwarder and say, this is the size of your shipment, this is where it's going, give us a booking.
Okay.
So the entire time your forwarder should have been working on securing a booking as close to your complete date as possible. So now your goods are complete, they're all in boxes and ready to go. The forwarder can then send a container over to your factory, or your factory can send the goods over to your forwarder so they can be loaded on the container.
Okay. But right now,
Yes.
that's not as easy as it sounds. So what is happening right now in freight that isn't supposed to happen?
Right now, there is a container shortage in China. This happened because there were delays when the pandemic broke out and imports started coming into the US, to the UK, and there were not enough workers to unload all of those containers. So they put them aside, and they kept putting them aside until workers were able to come back. However, now there's a stockpile of these containers that should have been returned to China about a month ago.
Okay.
So, and that's where this all started. So now it was a mad scramble to unload the containers and send them back. And we're still dealing with the fallout of that because, as you know, imports didn't stop coming into the US.
Right.
So there just wasn't enough people to unload them and unpack them. So now it's a scramble to just get the containers returned to China.
Okay.
And out to wherever they're going again.
Okay. So I'm following the logic of how things are supposed to go. So the containers aren't necessarily going back to China in a timely manner, but yet product keeps coming off the manufacturing line and being put in case packs, maybe on pallets, maybe not. That's a whole nother story, the cost of pallets right now. But so what is happening to all these products, all these case packs of, and we're talking specifically games, but we know it's happening across all consumer goods. But here at GPI, we predominantly manufacture games. So let's talk about what is happening to all those case packs of games at the factory when they're finished, but there's no container right now to put them in.
They are taking up storage space and waiting for a container to become available. So during a normal time, once your goods were complete, you would already have a sailing and a container prepared for you. You'd load the stuff in the container and it would be on its way. Now that there is such a shortage of containers, the goods are waiting at the factory. And
Okay.
Sometimes at the factory, sometimes they're waiting at a forwarder's warehouse.
Okay.
Or a local warehouse somewhere in China or Hong Kong. But either way, they're sitting there waiting for a container to become available. What this means now is you probably don't have a sailing yet for your goods because you're waiting for a container to be secured.
Okay.
The container gets secured and then they can secure a sailing too.
Okay.
So that's what we're waiting for.
Okay.
And that's the holdup on that part.
Okay, so let's say we're lucky enough. All right, so we've waited our time and finally a container has been found. Our games are loaded onto one container, two containers, sometimes 8 containers.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually have gotten a sale date. What happens then?
Ideally, they get delivered, these containers get delivered to port, put on the ship, and they're off to their destination. Realistically now, what is happening is that there are not enough containers to actually fill up a sailing. So even if you have a sailing booked, that's fantastic. That means you have your containers, but they still can't fill up the ship by that date because there's not enough containers to fill it. There's still other people waiting. That's going to cause a rolling schedule, which means that that's where your delays are coming from. So that schedule will continue to roll until the ocean liners can fill that one vessel up completely with containers. It's very, very hard. It's very expensive to sail back and forth from China to the US on these container vessels. So they want to make the most of it, and they will not sail unless their vessels are fully loaded.
So where are my games then? When you say, all right, so I've gotten a container, I have a sailing date, my sailing date rolled, where are my actually physically, where are my games right now when all this is happening?
It depends. They are likely still at the factory, just waiting for the schedule to open up and be confirmed. However, there are times when your containers can already be delivered to port, and then the sail schedule rolls, and that means they're in the container. They're waiting to take off. So they are likely, if they've already been delivered to port, they're likely already on the vessel. They're just sitting at port waiting for the vessel to depart.
And right now, how would you say, how often does someone between getting a sail date and when it actually sails, and say it rolls once, and I know because I see you every day in the office, I hear it rolled again, it might have rolled again. So what is the standard time? Is there a rule of thumb you think you're feeling right now between when something gets a sail date and then it rolls, and when it really leaves the port and heads here?
There's really no standard. It can roll 4, 5, sometimes 8 weeks before it actually departs. Sometimes sailings are canceled altogether because they just don't have enough containers. So they'll combine 2 sailings, and they'll actually remove containers from one ship and combine it with another sailing.
They put it on the other ship. They don't take it off a ship and it doesn't.
No. It goes on another ship. But if your vessel has changed, if your vessel name has changed, that's what's happened. They've just canceled that sailing entirely, and they've moved your container to a new sailing.
And I'm going to put you on the spot yet again. Do you have any advice to people as they're, because I know you do bookings for people. I know sometimes our clients do their own bookings. Do you have advice to them as to how to hedge their bets, how to, take a challenging situation, and it seems it doesn't, and I want to ask this in the right way, because it seems like it doesn't matter if you're a large player in this industry or you're just the smallest 120-foot container, you're experiencing this pain of having trouble finding a container, then finally getting a booking date, but the booking doesn't sail and it rolls. Is there something that you would say, okay, I would do this because it hedges your bets to have the better chance to actually catch a sale date that is actually going to happen?
Yes, there are a couple things you can do to guarantee that your goods get on the water. First of all, there are called premium no-roll sailings. These are bookings that are guaranteed not to roll, and they cost.
But are they?
So if the sailing gets canceled, they'll be moved to another vessel. But they typically do not roll. So that's good. They're much more expensive. So you can be paying $4,000, $5,000, even $6,000 more for a no roll premium sailing, but you're
Okay.
going to have your goods on the water. I mean, it could even be 2, 3 months before somebody who booked at the same time as you, only they booked on a non-premium
Okay.
sailing.
Okay.
So if you have deadlines, that's 100% what you should be booking right now. There should be no other
Okay.
bookings on your calendar.
Okay.
My other suggestion to you is to don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Okay.
So you might have try out 2 forwarders. If you have 8 containers that you need to get out, put bookings in with 2, 3
Oh,
forwarders, and then you might start seeing more sailings and more offerings, and you can get more of your goods out faster that way.
okay. Should I book, say I do have multiple containers, should I book them all on the same, um, try to book them all on the same vessel? Should I book them individually? Should I split them in half? What do you think there?
Well, ideally, of course, you want all of your goods to ship together and arrive at the same time.
Okay.
And that is typically how everybody books their shipments. In a situation like this where sailings aren't guaranteed and you don't know when you're going to be able to get space, trying to get 5, 4, 8 containers on the same sailing is almost an impossibility.
Okay.
It's nice to try, but I've seen very little of that happening in the past year.
Okay.
So I would highly recommend ship whatever container you can when you can. Get it out on the water and moving, because if it's moving, it's not sitting there and waiting, and it's going to get to you sooner than just waiting around for one sailing.
Okay. One last question, then we're going to talk about a much happier question. So is there any added cost? I mean, I'm already paying like 3 times more for the container. If I did one of these no roll bookings, then I'm paying a lot of more money. But if I didn't go for the no roll and my products are sitting there waiting to get on that ship,
Mm-hmm.
and say they're not at the warehouse, but they're at the port, and they were on a vessel and the vessel ship date rolled, is there any additional cost for my stuff other than the fact that I can't get it here to sell it, which is a lost sales? But is there any additional cost to my freight bill on that end?
Unfortunately, there are more costs that can accrue while your goods are just sitting there.
Okay.
There are general rate increases, which the ocean lines implement each month. Sometimes they don't go through, sometimes they do. But if your vessel has not departed, if it's not sailing on the water by the general rate increase date, your sailing is going to go up in price
Oh
by that
boy,
much. Sometimes it can
that's
be
harsh.
600, sometimes it can be 900, sometimes it can be $1,200, depending on the size
Okay.
of the container you're shipping. So
Okay. Okay. That hurts.
it does.
But yeah, but it's a reality, and knowledge is power, which is why we're doing this, because the more you know.
And honestly, there have always been general rate increases. They do
Okay.
this every month. They're not a new thing.
Okay.
Um, but we're noticing it more because the price
Okay.
of shipping has gone up. I mean, 5, 6, 7-fold right now. So since what it was before. So now just seeing any slight increase, it's gonna hit you hard.
Okay. All right. So let's say this happy scenario happens that I have a container, I have a sailing, it's on the vessel, and the vessel has left the origin port.
Yes,
And
good
now
news.
it's arriving at the destination port here in the US.
Okay,
So I
it's
feel
here.
like I all is set, all is right
Yeah,
with the world, but I
well,
feel
right.
like it's 2021. So we're gonna say, what happens now, Aaron?
Um, More delays, unfortunately. And It depends on what port you're going to. The West Coast has really been hit hard with delays over the past year. But once it gets to port, that doesn't mean that it's actually pulling up and unloading things. There's a line to get into port. And
Okay.
in order for a ship to berth or come up and get unloaded, you need to be called in. Sometimes there's vessels that can be waiting in the water 4, 5, 6 days, sometimes even a few weeks, just waiting to pull into port and unload.
Okay.
So that's now we're at the domestic delays.
Okay. So,
It truly depends on what port you're going to and what condition it's in that week.
okay.
It very much changes and toggles.
Okay.
West Coast has been harder this year, harder hit, but again, we're seeing delays all over. South,
Okay.
east. I mean, there's nowhere to hide.
Oh, okay. That's fun. Good thing I don't like hide and seek anyway, so we're not hiding. All right. So the vessel finally gets into the destination port. It's unloaded. My container is going on a truck and being shipped to my warehouse. What's happening there?
Well, the container's not going directly to your warehouse per se. It gets off the vessel and then it goes 1 to 2 places. If it's a fully loaded container that doesn't need to be split apart, it goes to the freight container yard.
Okay.
It gets an appointment to come and be picked up by one of the truckers.
Okay.
This is probably planned ahead of time by your forwarder because there is, of course, a trucker shortage and chassis shortage too.
Of course there is.
So your forwarder will have, while your vessel was waiting to pull and berth at port, your forwarder has been planning and securing a trucker to come and pick up that container. That container can go directly to your warehouse. It's fully loaded. The trucker is there, and he or she is ready to drive it to where it goes.
Okay.
That's your best case scenario.
Okay.
That's also why most people ship fully loaded containers instead of LCL or less than container loads.
Okay.
Because it doesn't need to go to that extra spot. If you have a less than container load, it goes to a container freight station, which it's taken apart and put on pallets.
Okay.
Once it's on pallets, the container freight station will call the people or the forwarder and say, okay, your goods are ready, send a trucker. And that's when the trucker is secured to come and pick up the goods.
Okay. So we've talked about delays at every step of the path here. What's going on at that? You called it a freight warehouse where the containers unloaded, everything is split and going, this portion going to this customer, this portion going here. So what's going on in that particular warehouse?
In that particular warehouse, they are splitting everything apart. They're
right.
splitting all of the containers apart. They're getting each shipment prepared to come and get picked up. They're also making sure the destinations on each shipment is correct, because now, does it go on a train or can it be trucked to the final destination?
So you talked about trucker shortages. So we know that that's delays is true whether you have a container load or a less than container load.
Yes.
Are there delays? Are they seeing delays at all unloading these LCL containers?
Well, they certainly are. I mean, there's a worker shortage.
Okay.
It's very much due to the pandemic and the restrictions that are put in place, and there's just not enough people to unload the onslaught of containers that are coming in right now. Because as you said, it is almost peak season. Peak season officially starts in August, but quite frankly, I'm seeing the volume now.
Okay.
And we are in full speed ahead shipping. So it's putting a huge strain on the container yards and just trying to get everything unloaded and off to where it goes.
Okay. You mentioned trains.
Yes,
So that's,
yes,
I
I
know,
did.
another area that you can send your product by truck or you can send it by train. So hopefully we're going to put it on a train and it's going to get
Shoot
there
across the
faster.
country. Yep. That's the plan.
It's a
And
good plan.
it is a good plan. Most people who are shipping to the middle of the country use trains.
Okay.
Most people, if it's not going to a container yard or a warehouse on the West Coast, it's getting shipped inland.
Okay.
Most of the time that is by train, and the trains currently are about the most bogged down they have ever been. They have containers waiting to get on the train. They have containers waiting to come off the train at the destination. They have there are overflow lots holding containers because there again are just not enough workers to get everything unloaded and off to where it goes.
Okay.
By workers, I mean it could be the train workers, it could be the truckers, it could be maybe there's not a trucker available right when your container gets off the train. If that's the case, it gets put in the yard, and if it gets buried in that yard because the trucker isn't, there's a trucker that's not available right away, it might get buried there for over a month until somebody can get it back out again. I mean,
Oh, so that's the pictures and I'm sure we've all seen them where we see like whether it's at the port or we've recently seen the Chicago rail yard where there's containers and they stack them on top of each other. So you're saying if mine is the one on the bottom and there's stuff stacked above it, does that causes a delay also? Even though what happens if my trucker shows up and my container's on the bottom?
well, your trucker would be canceled at that
Oh,
point, and the train station would say, we will give you a call when it becomes available,
okay.
because you just can't pull a bottom container out from underneath three other containers. It takes a lot to move these fully loaded containers. They're not empty.
Right. Okay.
So it takes a lot of machinery, it takes a lot of manpower just to move these containers around. So once they're sitting where they are sitting, you have to wait until the containers around you move before you can get to yours. So,
Okay. So I think we've covered every facet because once it finally gets on a truck, whether it started on a truck from the port or it went from a train to getting on a truck, then it's arriving at your warehouse. And in theory, that's the end of the line. Everything is,
yeah.
unloaded and you're ready to sell your product. So it's not, a rosy picture here. 2021 sounds like it's much more challenging than 2020 even was.
It's true.
Um, I know that you are dealing with this every day, day in, day out. So anything, and you do it with a smile on your face, which is impressive because you've been beat up for a while now. Um, what parting words do you want to leave people with and how they cope with this?
Um, well, there's a few things. One, really, you need to be prepared. Be prepared for delays. Be prepared for your shipping before it even completes. Before your product even completes. Just make sure that you are prepared every step of the way, and be prepared for these delays because they will
Okay.
happen. They're not going away very quickly, as quickly as we all hoped and wanted, but they're not going away quickly. So you
Okay.
have to know that delays will happen regardless, and you just hope that they don't happen often.
Okay.
And just be patient. I mean, the workers at the ports, in the train stations, they don't want to they don't want to see all of this backup. They want things running smoothly, just like you do and just like I do.
Okay.
And we're all doing the best we can just to get things on the move. So,
Okay.
I mean, the more we can work with everybody and understand what they're going through as well, I think the better off we are all going to be.
Okay. Yeah. If nothing else, our sanity is a little bit saved, because even though this is a situation that we can't control, but if we understand what's happening and how it's happening, and we all try to exhibit some patience, it's very frustrating. I think transparency is important, in talking to everyone around. But this is why I asked you to do this call with me, because I wanted us to kind of talk a product through from beginning to end, because I know people are kind of saying, what the heck is going on out there?
Yeah, and I just want to add one more thing. So with all of these delays, I know people have deadlines. They have deadlines with major retail stores. And it's very important to hit these deadlines. So you might think maybe I should just airship my goods.
Okay.
Because that's another option, and it's a viable option. It is very, very, very expensive.
Okay.
I mean, far more expensive than all of the delays and the ocean shipments are causing you, and probably more expensive than the chargebacks you're going to get by missing your deadlines. So just really factor in, if you do consider air shipping, just consider how much it's going to cost. And if you do have to airship the bare minimum that you're going to need to meet your deadlines, because it might end up just being a worse decision than better.
Okay. All right. All right, good. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. And I know our customers are on the phone to you a lot, and you are on the phone to them a lot. And hopefully this answers some of their questions and can save us all some time.
Okay. Well, happy sailing. We are pushing your goods along as fast as we can just to get them where you want them to go.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Erin.
Thank you so much, Tammy. Have a good day.
All right. Bye.